Hey, it's Jeremy from jeremy.net. Someone emailed me the other day asking if I would help them publish their comic. Finding a writer, an artist, a creative team, putting the book together, getting it into comic book shops. I appreciate him reaching out to me, but unfortunately I don't have time to help him publish his book. That said, I told him that I was more than happy to share any knowledge I have and point him towards resources that might help him accomplish his goals. I realized that list of resources might be useful to you as well, so in the description for this video, you'll find links to all the things I'm going to talk about. Two quick things before we get started. First off, there's a reason why this video is called Resources for Learning to Self-Publish instead of How to Self-Publish Comics. I'm still a student of publishing and marketing. I have a tremendous amount to learn, but what I've learned up till now would still take hours and hours to go over. However, these resources are the ones that have been the most useful to me and the ones I continue to learn from. Secondly, the goal of the person who emailed me was that they want to get their comic into comic book shops. I did get my first graphic novel into comic book shops. However, I mostly sell my comics at conventions, through my website, and on Amazon.com. Getting into comic shops will involve submitting your comic to diamond distributors, and the process has changed significantly since I first published. It's not really my field of expertise. So, I've broken this list into 3 parts. Part 1 is understanding the publishing and self-publishing process. Part 2 is finding collaborators, and Part 3 is distribution, comic shops, conventions, Amazon, and crowdfunding. So, Part 1, understanding publishing and the self-publishing process. Whenever someone asks me about publishing comics, the first thing I go to is a book called True Facts by Larry Young. This book is my Bible on self-publishing. Now, it came out over a decade ago, so a lot of the minor details have changed, but the overall mindset is still the same. It gives you a really good overview of the comic book direct market publishing, which is different than a lot of other traditional bookstore publishing. Larry Young is the co-founder of a comic book publishing company called AIT Planet Lar, and True Facts originally started out as a series of columns that he wrote on the publishing industry. Next up is Dave Sim's self-publishing keynote speech. This speech it's free online, and it is a keynote address that he gave in the 90s at, I believe it was called ProCon, and it was a comic book convention aimed at creators, writers, artists, professionals. And the thrust of the speech was him breaking down why it's so important for creators to understand the publishing process. And it's a fiery, passionate speech. Dave Sim can be controversial for a whole wide variety of reasons, but I would still say that this speech is, regardless of what you think of his personal opinions, is a fantastic thing to read, just in terms of giving yourself an understanding of why it's important to be informed about how publishing works and how what a publisher will and won't do for you impacts your life. So it's a great speech. You should definitely read that. And related to that is Amptoon's How to Comic Guide. And that's the website where I found the link to the speech. It's from a cartoonist who put together a comic page of resources on his own, and that has a wide variety of topics in terms of actually producing comics, self-publishing. Or actually there are links to other self-publishing guides. So it's sort of like, it gets into an Inception, where I'm giving you a list of resources about self-publishing on his page, or a list of resources for self-publishing. And while I haven't used a lot of the links on there, I noticed just in looking at the website that it's got Adam Swan's Guide to Self-Publishing, Dave Sim's instructional editorials, Gary Reed's Guide to Self-Publishing. There's a self-publishing primer for creators by James Hudnall, some links about printers, a few other links. So it's worth checking out if you're trying to find out as much as possible. Next is not comics related, but very informative in terms of publishing. It's a podcast called The Creative Penn. It's hosted by a woman named Joanna Penn. She is a thriller author and writes prolifically about both in the fiction genre as well as in nonfiction related to publishing and authors as a business. And this is a podcast that's regularly at the top of my listening to list. There's a wealth of information on it. I would go back and listen to it from the beginning. There's been so many inspiring, informative interviews that she's done that have just basically broken down how publishing works, how it continues to change over the years. It's been a very long-running show. I think it started in 2009. So you hear it talk about how the publishing industry has changed so much over the past several years. So definitely check that out. Next, we're moving to finding collaborators. The first thing that I wrote to the person who had asked me was that I felt like attending comic conventions and walking Artist Alley is a great way to meet writers, artists, colorists, letterers, anybody that works in the creative industry, that works in comics. So I recently signed up for a mailing list, and the website is Connosaurus, and you'll see the links in the description. It's a mailing list / resource board search engine that lists comic conventions all around the world. Has the dates. I'm not sure if they have the cost for attendance, but just in terms of having a resource, a database to search of comic conventions of every different size, tiny shows, massive shows, international, like San Diego Comic-Con level shows, a little bit of everything. So if you're also trying to find people to work on comics with, just going to shows, talk to as many people as possible. Find out who's interested in collaborating, who has an artistic or writing style that you like. Finding out if it might be a bit early at a convention to even jump into that, but finding out if they're open to commissioned work, what their rates are. There's a whole wide variety of things you can talk about. But the first step, I think getting to meet someone in person can really give you a sense of, oh, this is somebody I think I could work with or I'd enjoy working with if they're open to it. Moving on to meeting collaborators online, Digital Webbing is another great website. The Digital Webbing forums, they have a list of writer showcases, artist showcases. You can just search through and look at different people's work, and they're all people that are looking to collaborate or they're looking to do work for hire. There's the Miller World forums for Mark Miller, the comic creator, creator of Wanted and Kick-Ass, among other fantastic books. And he's got a very, very active forum full of creatives, full of people talking about all wide variety of things. Some comic related, some just about the world, sports, entertainment, politics, what have you. But they have a specific section called Creative Central. And that is kind of along the lines of the Digital Webbing forum, where it's got people showing their work, sharing their work, trying to help each other improve in their work, discussing the creative comics industry that we're so passionate about. Lastly, in the Finding Collaborators section, you may have seen this video already if you've been watching my channel, but I have a video called How to Find a Comic Book Artist Collaborator with guest Jamie Gamble. I, being an artist, get asked by people all the time, how do I find an artist? And being that I write for myself, I'm, not usually looking for anyone else to work with. So I went to my friend Jamie because he is a great comic book writer, but he's also a great comic book collaborator and publisher. And he's done a great job of building creative relationships with artists, colorists, letterers, I think that he's somebody who's doing indie comics very, very well. And he's done a great job of reaching out to people and building relationships. So I sat him down and we had a quick conversation. just discussing his process of, and his experience in terms of like going out, meeting other people. And surprisingly, he's met a lot of people online as opposed to, what I originally said about meeting people at Artist Alley at conventions. So go ahead and check the link and listen to that show if you haven't listened to it already. So lastly, there's distribution. Distribution can be very, very complicated. So reading these resources and checking out how they explain getting your work from the time it's finished to getting it into your reader's hands it's going to take some research, but it's very much worth investing in. So starting with comic book shops, as I said, Diamond Comic Distributors is the main distributor for the comic book industry. Most of the local comic book shops throughout the United States and several comic shops internationally order their books from Diamond. You create your book, you submit it to Diamond for review. They review it, decide whether it's something that they feel would work in the comic book retail market. If they do, they list it in their catalog, previews, which gets sent out to comic book shops every month. And that is the catalog that comic book shops actually order from. They're your primary customer. You sell your books to you sell your books to Diamond. Diamond sells it to the retailer sells it to the reader. So, in essence, if your book doesn't appeal to retailers, it's not getting into comic book shops. So, Diamond has a vendor website where they list their submission guidelines. And as I said, those guidelines have changed quite a bit since I published my first book. Like now, you don't just submit preliminary artwork or whatever artwork you have for the book or a finished book for them to review. Now you also have to submit a marketing plan and advertising plan for how you plan to promote the book. And these are things that I have not gone back and looked into since I first published my book because those requirements weren't necessary. But I do feel that I probably would have sold more books if I were forced to come up with a marketing plan and an advertising plan for the book when I came out with it. I did run ads on a few podcasts and on some comic book websites, but that alone isn't enough. And I think being forced to really think through that process would be very helpful. So in the link that I have in the lists in the description, it takes you to Diamond's vendor website, and you can read all the information they have there about how to submit your work and their requirements. Now, I mentioned before that comic conventions are the main way that I sell my work, so the website Connoissaurus that I mentioned for finding collaborators is also the one I would point you at for looking at local shows. And, I would say if you've never sold a book before, starting small, just do a small show, get a table. For smaller shows, they don't tend to be that expensive. At larger shows, prices have been climbing over the past few years, but that's because comic books have been becoming more popular over the past few years, and comic book movies have been becoming more popular. Pop culture in general is on the rise, so shows have been getting more expensive as they've been getting bigger. So, start slow, but don't be afraid to dive your toe in. I mean, you don't want to, spend thousands and thousands of dollars on it if you've never done this before. But it's worth it if you're self-publishing and you're an independent creator. You can even go with, you don't even have your comic book finished. You can have, a preview book. Just go there and check them out, try it out. I always say that's the best way to get over the fear of it, because it seems really scary until you actually go out and do it. Then once you do it, it is scary. And then you do it several other times, it gets a little bit less scary and a little bit less scary. And then all of a sudden you're just like, hey, I'm at a comic convention behind a table and it feels like home to me. I also sell my comic books on Amazon. Now, I don't have it set up so that my Amazon site is my Amazon page isn't just a link to where people buy from me. I'm actually using Amazon's print-on-demand service called CreateSpace. Just like Kablam, which is a print-on-demand service for comics, Amazon has a print-on-demand service where you can submit the files for your book, and then when people order from Amazon, it gets printed as they need it. That way, you don't have to carry a ton of overstock. I've done offset comic book printing before, where I've had 1,000 books in my garage that it took me years to go through. So, if you want to look at something where you don't have to carry a lot of inventory. And the other additional benefit is that when you put it on sale through CreateSpace, it can go up on Amazon so that people can order directly from Amazon. Now, the last area that I had the least amount of experience with is one that's very exciting, and it's the newest one, which is crowdfunding. Now, One Fantastic Week is a YouTube channel and podcast that I actually, I haven't checked on the podcast. So I mainly just watch it on YouTube now. But it's a great resource for creatives. It is geared towards artists. So it's really not focused on comic creators, although they have had comic creators on before. But they have so much information about running Kickstarter campaigns, Patreon campaigns. They have a great workshop called the Fantastic Workshop, and I attended it this year because last year, after listening to the show, like towards the end of convention season, I was like, well, I was tired. It's been a long year. It's kind of an expensive ticket, but I was kind of burnt out on just business in general. I kind of wanted to just have a little downtime for the end of the year. But every episode of the show I listened to after they had the workshop just got me more and more excited. And I was like, I got to get in a room with these people just to hear what they have to say and hear their knowledge about running your business. And I got great feedback on my convention setup, on my work, how I'm branding my work. And it's scary because in order to get my house in order, I'm going to have to bust my ass. And it's not going to be a quick changes. It's going to be like doing a deep dive, looking into what I make and why I make it and how I want to express that to people. So I've got a lot of long work to do, but it was so worth it. And if you're looking into publishing, I think a lot of the things that they have to say about running Kickstarter campaigns and Patreon campaigns are just as valuable whether you're selling an art print, an art book, a novel, a graphic novel, whatever. I think that you should definitely go back and just listen to as many episodes as possible. I mean, you can cherry pick by searching their channel specifically for comics or books, and then you can learn about crowdfunding for those. But it's a great show, so you should definitely check that out. Now, also on the crowdfunding topic, this one is comics related, but the reason why I didn't put it before One Fantastic Week is because I haven't been listening to them regularly. However, Tyler James is a comic creator who has a publishing company called Comics Tribe, and he's also formed a website called Comics Tribe. And that website has not just his work on it, but also has tremendous number of resources for people that are indie creators. He's very pro indie comics, and you can find so many resources on there. He's got a podcast called Comics Launch, which is all about crowdfunding your comics. I've listened to a few episodes. They were great. The only reason why I did stay up with the show is because, again, the crowdfunding wasn't necessarily, having a day job like I do, I don't have as much time to do it properly. And I figure if I'm going to do it, I want to do it right, because that's the only way it's going to be successful. So most of the spare time I have right now is going towards just trying to get the artwork writing done. So, yeah, that's the list. There's a lot to take in here, but if you're serious about this, check out all these resources. Read, listen to, watch as many as possible. It might take months for you to go through all this info. It took me years, and I'm still going through it. Now, there's so many great resources these days online to learn, and I've only touched on a few of them. If you have some great resources on publishing comics, please share them in the comments. These videos aren't just about me talking to you or talking at you. Interact with each other. Share with each other. Everything I know is from other people who are generous enough to share with me. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy these videos, please like and share them. Visit my resources page for free creativity tools and comic books at resources.jeremy.net. That's resources.gerimi.net. Also, visit my main website, jeremy.net, where you can buy my comic books, art prints, and more. There's also links to my Instagram, Twitter, and other social media accounts. That's it for now.